Okay, everyone, we're going to do a little massacre in Colombia. Now, this is a real data set. Remember, this is how you do it. Just import the data. The data is there. Masacres, that's massacres in Colombia. And I'm going to explain this just a little bit. Now, remember, you have to attach it. Let's go with attach. And then it bumps up there. Look at that. And then just the three letters, and it comes up, boom, massacres in Colombia. Now, this is the same thing with the affairs data set we're going to use, although it has all this, day, month, that's May, month, año is year. Look at that. You're learning Spanish and statistics. Is that amazing or what? What a class. These are the two things we're going to use. So typo is type, and then we have victims. This is the number of victims that is carried out by the people who attacked them. Remember how we had affairs, there were only three, what I call one variable, which was affairs, gender, two attributes, that's parts of the variable, female and male. That's the independent variable. Here we're going to have actually three. Fuerza is like the national police or military, right? And then you come way down here, we have paramilitaries. And then we have way down here, because I think it's, the guerrilla. There are three attributes. So you have type of military force committing massacres in Colombia during the quote-unquote civil war. Although I don't believe in civil wars. Usually there's someone involved, right? Other countries. But regardless, Fuerza is the military and, police force, basically, the official police force. Paramilitaries is the other type that is committing massacres, which is not an official part of the government, but essentially going against these guerrilla movements. Those are like insurrection people, like the FARC, ELN, and others, who are not part of the military. They're not formal. They kind of get together among themselves and then plan on, say, defending their land from the guerrillas. Then you have the guerrillas, which are basically a big, more ideologically oriented guerrilla movement within the country. So Colombia suffered a long civil war, so until the peace process. So now we want to see, how many massacres. Now, this is very difficult information to get, but this is real information that I got in Colombia. But the thing is, how accurate it is, we can dispute that all day. But these are the numbers we have. So you've got three types. Fuerza, that's force, is basically all the official military of Colombia and how many victims there are. Second, a paramilitary, those are unofficial groups of people that kind of get together and try to defend themselves against this guerrilla movement like the FARC in Colombia, right? Then the second are the guerrilla movements. There's different kinds of guerrilla groups that people join for different reasons. So you've got these three groups causing massacres that are fighting against each other. The military and the paramilitaries sometimes work together, but they're not the paramilitaries, because para means beyond, are not exactly the military of Colombia. But sometimes they get benefits like lunches, money, foods, etc. to help. You can think of them as like private military contractors here in the United States. They go to Iraq and other places. They're not the official military, but they do have this kind of link. The military, the government of the United States will pay them, or Russia, whoever, and then they can do their dirty work for them. So that's very important to understand. So we got these three types. So the three types, this here is the independent variable, meaning the cause of these victims, which is the dependent variable. Notice this is numeric, all those victims. So it's the same as the affairs, and then the number of affairs people were having. That's why we can still use the LM function. So you have type and military victims. So we want to see if there's a significant difference between the type of force, these three types, and the amount of victims. So it's essentially just the LM function again. So all you have to do is say, call it something, we'll call it war, right? LM Now remember, the dependent variable always comes first, which is victims. So VIC, and then that's what you got. And then Tia tilde over here. And then type. Now, this is a large data set. I'm going to make sure I recognize, say data equals, oops, it's massacre Colombia, not Colombian massacre. Okay. And there we have it. So then we do a summary of war. But boom. Now I'm going to go here. You're going to be able to see my history over here. And then you're going to be able to see this. All right. So let's take a look. This is basically saying, according to the algorithm, that the type of paramilitaries, right? That's the guerrilla. Those are the like FARC, the groups that are trying to overthrow the government. That there is no significant difference with La Fuerza, the police. The police is the base over here. Why did Fuerza, that's the name, the attribute there, come first and not guerrilla and not paramilitaries? Well, think about it. A, B, C, D, E, F is becoming before G and becoming for P. So it's by alphabetical order will be the base. In this case, the intercept is extremely important. So this is very bad. This is saying there's actually no difference between the guerrilla and the fuerza and the paramilitary and the fuerza. Notice, which is important, that we're just comparing these two to the base. They're not being compared paramilitary and guerrilla. In order to do that, you have to relevel it, and that's what we're going to do. So this is basically saying that there is an increase of killing, because it's plus, it doesn't say minus, and there is an increase of killing, but it's not quote unquote statistically significant because the p-value is not under 0.05, which I've gone over in other ones. But there are other measurements, right? What are the other measurements? Look at the multiple r squared. Let's just call it r squared. That's very bad. That's 0.0007062. Remember, the r squared is how much is this explaining our model. It doesn't seem to be explaining because the best you can get is 1. Well, no, because it's squared, so you can't get exactly 1. But closer to 1, the better. And that's 0, 0, 0. So this is basically saying there's no relationship between the type of military, or what you would say guerrillas, paramilitary, and the official military type of group and the amount of victims in this algorithm. So there's really no big difference here, but there will be in the practical way. That's what I want to show you. And this is where it's going to get important. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put the paramilitaries, the guerrilla, on the base to see, and that'll compare those two with that. So let's take a look. We got to change it. Remember, these are considered, if you go class, tipo, that is a character. You have to change it to a factor. A factor you can change and do all these things to it. So the tipo, this variable, is only a character. We have to make it, as you might know or remember, right? A factor. Oops. Now you just do it with as point factor. So it's not really that difficult once you start getting the hang of it. But you're just changing the type of variable it is. So now you put class people. And watch out whether it's capital or not. Factor. So now it's a factor. You have to do that first with everything. Now we're going to relevel it. How do we relevel it? That's tough to say. Massacre Colombia. We could just do it with the regular one. Let's take a look if we can do it like this. What is it? It's tipo. Now, relevel is not a package or anything. So it's just tipo. Let's see if it goes here. Let's do, say, I want to copy and paste because then I'll know. We'll use the paramilitaries. Now, what does this do? And I want to explain to you what it does. Look at this. Let's see if it goes. All right. It seemed to have gone. Nothing. No error. So what this is going to do is this paramilitary now is going to be the base where this says intercept, because there's 3 parts. Look it up here. We have, oops, we're way over those. That's the department and all the place. We're not going to use those. So the type has fuerza, like I said, paramilitaries. Look at all those, and the guerrilla. That's the people in the insurrection, right? So what we're doing here is essentially now it should come up with paramilitaries as this base. And then we'll compare paramilitaries to the guerrilla, right? Because we already know paramilitary and fuerza, guerrilla and fuerza, because we're comparing this to the base and then this to the base. So let's say war, right? War, but we'll call it war 2. Use the LM function. Same exact thing. The victims are the dependent variable, the results. How many are you getting? It's continuous, so we can still use the LM function, even though the independent variable type is just kind of a categorical thing, right? The paramilitaries, the fuerza, and the guerrilla. So then victims, then type is the independent variable, and I want to put data equals the massacre. That means massacres. All right, let's see what we get for a summary. Oops, sorry. Did it work? Yes, we got it. So the paramilitaries are killing the most because now it's our base. It's still not significant. So guerrilla is killing less. And it says fuerza is killing less than the paramilitary. So the paramilitaries are killing more. But it's still very bad. The multiple R squared and both of these are not significant because they're not below 0.05. Remember, this is the p-value, which I went over, which is saying, you know, what are the chances that these these variables are related? You know, is the guerrilla movement under this guerrilla killing more than, say, the paramilitaries? It's saying it isn't because it's negative, but it's not statistically significant, meaning they're all killing each other about the same, according to the algorithm. But that's where we're going to get into the more practical value that's going to be important. And the multiple R squared is very bad. The closer to 1, the better, and that's way far, 0.007, which means we're not explaining a lot, right? So what we're doing here is regression analysis still, except unlike, say, the ice cream data set, if you remember, those were all continuous variables. So temperature and consumption of ice cream, they were all numbers. So we're just seeing, is there a correlation? Here we're doing the same thing, and we can use the LM function, even though the independent variable, the causal variable, is type, which is a categorical variable, nominal variable, meaning fuerza, guerrilla, or the paramilitaries. So we're seeing how much each group is killing. But what's interesting in this, right? What's interesting in this, when you start seeing it, and I want to make sure I have it here. All right. I'm going to paste it in here and show you. This is ggplotly. It's a long thing. You don't have to do it this long, but this is basically we're going to code for it, right? We're going to get that up. We're going to code for it. So as you remember, ggplot, massacre, Colombia. And then I did a comma, but you could also do the parentheses plus the aesthetics, AES. Tipo is the independent variable. Victims is the dependent variable. But instead, unlike the others, we're going to fill it with tipo. We're going to explain what that means. And then we got the geom bar instead of geom point. And the stat equals identity. That's in order to make it side by side. And this is labs plus labs. Don't ask me why they call it plus labs. It is kind of a funny function to call it in ggplot, but that's where we do the titles. So the title is Colombia Guerrilla War. Guerrilla War is like when you're not fighting state-on-state actors, you're actually fighting against non-state actor, which you never really know. It's tough to win or at least defeat because you never know who your enemy is, which we're going to get into. I'll give you a little thing on this. But anyways, X equals the militant group, Y equals victims. Now, the scale, the plus scale fill manual, you're going to see the values I changed. And Fuerza is a color fire brick. Guerrilla is spring green 4, and paramilitary is royal blue. You got to keep them all in the parentheses. This is kind of interesting because let's see what we get. There we go. So now look at this. This is kind of a weird, but you have to concede, important result. So we have 3 groups. The paramilitaries are kind of fighting against this group, the guerrilla group, the FARC and everyone. I'll send out a extra research on it. Then we get the Fuerza, that's the official military of Colombia, and then we have the guerrilla. Now, obviously, we don't know how much this is true because obviously the police, the official police can and military can kind of, hide the victims and stuff. There was a Parapolitica, that was a scandal where they were killing people and saying they were with the FARC and they weren't. The FARC is the guerrilla group that's over here. And then there are other smaller ones that I added to guerrillas. So the thing that's interesting is it's saying it should be significant, one might say, because there's so many paramilitaries, right? Killings. But that's because there's a lot of paramilitaries in general. So it's not in the algorithm considered, but there's still practical value here. This is called a legend. This is the type of people. And you have paramilitaries over here. So they're killing at a huger rate. There's just more of them. So it's not like you're more likely to be killed by the paramilitary when we get into the table, which I'm going to show you. But then you've got the guerrillas in green over here. And this is the amount they're killing over here. So it's like up to 2,000, almost 6,000 over here. Oh, no, it's over that because this is 4, 5, 6. So this would be 6. That would be over 7,000. So, and this would be lower, the 4. So if you go back over here and you look at a table, you won't have to do all this on the exam and just do TPO, right? You see the paramilitaries, there's a lot more data points. What's that? Oh, when you go over here, you see TPO, there's a lot more over here happening in the paramilitary. So there's over, 1,166 over here. In the guerrilla, there's 340 and Fuerza 170. But because there's so many of those, they're saying, well, you're not more likely. See, this is one of the failures with statistics, I think, although it's important to do it, saying it's not statistically significant, but at the same time, why, right, is this obviously for a practical value? It seems like they're being killed at a more rapid rate. The paramilitaries are killing people at a more rapid rate. Now, when we got up here, it does say this, right? Look at the intercept is basically saying that that's the paramilitaries are killing at a more rapid rate because these are significantly lower. That's why each one is lower. So the guerrilla is lower, right? 0.06%. And then you've got the tipo fuerza, which is even lower, and then like that. So the question becomes, why isn't it significant? And my hunch depends on the algorithm. Then later, can you do other types of model and will it come up significant? This is why visual representation is always important. Because if you were basically doing a research and you just said, oh, these weren't significant just based on the p-value and the multiple r squared, people would be like, oh, okay, then they're all killing each other at the same rate. Which to a certain degree they are, but then we come over and see it visually. That could be a question on the quiz, like why is it visually important? You start seeing, okay, there's something else going on here that these numbers are not producing. And I think this is one of the important things. And then you'd have to run it in different models. We don't have, which is out of the scope of this class because it's a beginning. But so what's the takeaway here? Number one, this is regression analysis, right? We're just seeing if there's a relationship between these variables, which is very important. However, number two, we have an independent variable that's a more nominal categorical. It's not numerical. So we have where's the guerrilla and the paramilitaries, right? That's not numeric. Then we have results, but these results are not significant. But at the same time, when we do this, right, this will be an important question. Visually, we're seeing something more here that's important. And maybe that's why the war lasted so long, was because these people are killing at such a rapid rate. And, obviously we got the paramilitaries. So it's like fighting to a stalemate. But we can, conjecture and interpret all day long. I mean, that would be far beyond the scope of this lecture. But the point is, that's what we're doing with statistics here. And this is a pretty sophisticated statistics. So if you kind of get the gist of what's going on, that is absolutely amazing. So reach out to me. And this table is just how many, data points there are there. If you, for questions, comments, and write anything in our community forum. Take care, everyone.